All right, what is going on, you guys? This is Erica's for the win, and this is the last final boss of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I'm going to upload just the gameplay on its own so you can kind of, take in the atmosphere and what was really going on audio-wise and all of that. But I did want to talk about the boss fight, so that's why I'm doing this video. Man, this was definitely one of the toughest bosses I've ever faced in all of gaming. This might be top 3. It was really a challenge, and don't let anyone fool you or tell you otherwise. They're lying, okay? This was a tough fight. Some people are going to get it down quicker than others, but for myself personally, I wanted to kind of just tell you guys about my experience with it and what I went through and just how much of a challenge it was for me. So yeah, this boss fight altogether has 4 phases. 4 freaking phases. The first one is Genichiro, which is a boss that I faced before. We all faced him when we were playing. So that one, it's kind of familiar. We know what to expect for the most part. But then he transitions into Isshin, the Sword Saint, for another 3 phases. And there's no break time. There's no, time that you can go reset your healing and all of that. No, you just go straight into it. So it is 4 phases. And that's, I think, what makes it so tough. So yeah, the first phase was pretty basic. He kind of did the same things all the time. He would always start with the Mortal Blade move. You would just have to get behind him and hit him. I did that every single time. And I would just start from there. He pulls out the bow a lot, and that's easy hits. Because every time you hit him, it cancels his bow and he can't shoot it. So I would just really focus on taking advantage of those moments. The only real trouble I had for the most part was mixing up the Makiri and the jump, because there's times he would do a sweep attack and I would Makiri on accident, or he would do a move that requires Makiri and then I would jump. So I would mix those up many times because his animations don't look that different. They kind of look similar. But once I got that down, it was a breeze, the first phase. The second phase honestly gave me the most trouble, and I think it's because of his hits being delayed. I typically struggle with bosses that have delayed hits, delayed animations. It looks like they're going to hit me and I panic and I react too soon. Just timing those deflections for the first phase of Isshin, I think, gave me the most trouble. But once I was able to kind of get those down and get that deflection timing down, it became more of a breeze. I had to really master that though. That took a couple hours, I'd say. And then the third phase, which is the third overall, the second Isshin, he starts to play around with the spear now, and that becomes Makiri time. So I had to really, get that Makiri counter down, and it was really, I'd say, the funnest phase, because he was doing these crazy moves. He was using a lot of wind that I would deflect with my umbrella. It just looked cool. It felt good. Every time I would hit that Makiri counter, it was very satisfying. But of course, timing is so important, and getting that timing down took more than a few tries as well. But the Makiri was everything. I felt like my whole time during that phase was just trying to bait those moments that I could land the Makiri counter, because otherwise, when we're in the open and I'm too far away or I'm too close, he's going to start doing different things. So whenever I got those moments to counter with the Makiri, it was those were the moments. Those were the ones I was looking for, because his posture would be really affected by those. When you would run away more often and things like that, his posture is just going to go down. So it just really became about being aggressive, but at the same time learning when to back off, because he did have moves that you do need to back off with. So man, just getting that all down, the timing, the Makiri counter, knowing when to attack, when not to, but at the same time always staying aggressive so that posture doesn't go away, as far as breaking his. It was tough. So yeah, the third phase is no slouch. Even though I struggled more with the second, the third was still very difficult. Then of course you have the fourth phase, which brings in the lightning round. He's got lightning now. He's kind of doing the same things he did in the third phase, but yeah, he's got this lightning attack. And of course you can do a move where you shoot it back at him, and I got that down towards the end. Took me a while. There were times I would jump, I would panic, I would dodge and things like that, and I would get hit. But once I was able to reverse that lightning, yeah, he was done. So That's what you're seeing right here as far as this gameplay, just me mastering all these phases, and it really took a long time to do so. It took hours. It really did, and it was just a crazy experience. Once I was able to get through that second phase, which is technically the first phase of Isshin, I kind of found my mojo a little bit. I was able to, kind of get a flow going, or at least, at the very least, confidence. Like, okay, I'm progressing. I'm getting to the next phases. And that's really what it came down to, and what kept me going and put together. Because this fight, it's really easy to get discouraged. I know that personally. I went through those motions. It was very much a roller coaster. There were times where I felt really discouraged, and then there were times I felt like I got this. So it was very up and down. But ultimately, I just kept thinking to myself, and this kept me together, and that was that, like, listen, as long as you're progressing each time, each session, you're gonna be okay. That was kind of like my main thinking. And that's what happened. Each session that I had, I would either, get to the next phase, or I would master the one I was on. So for example, my first session, I was mostly on the first phase, and sometimes I would get to the second, which is Isshin. And each time I would kind of get a little bit further. I still felt shaky about phase 2, but I was mastering the first phase. Then the next session, I would get to the second phase more often, and I would start to master it. It took longer, but I was starting to master it. And maybe I would hit that third phase, maybe, a couple times. Then the next session, I would start to really master that second phase, and I would get to the third phase more often. So yeah, that was kind of my process. And the more I was able to see the third phase, I was looking forward to that fourth phase. Like, okay, I'm gonna get there eventually. And when I did, it was so short-lived, but at least I got there. And little by little, I just kept going and going and progressing and progressing. And this took hours. The gameplay you're watching, you're probably gonna think, I made it look easy, or the boss looks easy, but no, I mean it that it took hours to get to this point. Going through every single phase, trying to master every phase, it took a lot of time and more than a few sessions. If I had to guess the hours total, it's around like 5 or 6. Seriously. And some people might think, oh my gosh, that's crazy, but that this boss isn't that hard. But no, it really was. There were times, granted, there were times I was really sleepy and just trying to play it, and I kind of regret it, but in the end, I think it was worth it because I was able to, like I said, kind of get that progress going. But still, I'm not downplaying it at all. I'm not. It took a hot minute to get this boss done, and it really felt like it was a game within itself. I felt like going through each phase, it was like going through levels. And starting the boss every time was like starting at the beginning of a video game. That's really how I treated it and how it felt. And like I said, with progressing a little bit each time, it was like I was getting through a video game a little bit at each time. So it was kind of crazy. It was kind of like a weird experience, something kind of different. Because I feel like when I fought bosses in the past, especially if they were very difficult, I would struggle for a bit, with these bosses, some more than others, like Ibridus, for example, on Bloodborne. I struggled with that one for a while. But even then, I at least saw all that it had to offer in one session. I was able to get to the last phase. I just wouldn't make it, right? And at times, I would just say, okay, I'm gonna take a break. I'll come back tomorrow. I'll come back fresh, and then we'll get it done. And usually I would, sometimes in the first couple of tries. But with this boss, that was not happening, at least not that quickly. The last session I had, I was way more confident, but leading up to that, my confidence was just so up and down because of all the phases, all the moves I had to learn, and how quick and good I had to counter those moves. You guys already know, playing so much Soulsborne going into this game, I struggled with deflecting, parrying, and just playing it the way it wants me to play it. So having that experience already has kind of set me up to struggle even more. So yeah, this boss forced me, like, you got to master this. You got to get good at this. And taking breaks didn't necessarily have the same rewards like it did in prior bosses. Like I just mentioned with Ibridus and other bosses, I would take breaks, come back, and then get it done. But with this boss, it wasn't so simple. I would think to myself at the end of a session, like, okay, I progressed really well. Tomorrow, maybe I'll get it done tomorrow. I'll come back fresh. I'll be all right. But when I would come back, it was like I had to start that process over again of getting through the first phase, mastering the second, mastering the third, dying over and over and over, and then going back to that first phase. It just felt defeating at times. Like, man, I know I'm progressing, but man, this process is just starting over and over, and I'm having to go through it every single time. It's not a matter of coming back the next day fresh and getting it done. That was not happening. So when I tell you it's like a roller coaster fighting this boss, it really can be. It was for me. I was sometimes very discouraged. I was sometimes feeling like, man, I'm not going to get this done anytime soon. I always knew I would. Eventually, it's going to happen. But at what cost? Emotionally, at what cost? Because I was getting to the point where I was really frustrated at times, even to the point of raging at times. I was so frustrated because some of my inputs would just not happen. And I concluded that it's probably a PS4 thing because we already know the situation with consoles. You know, the frames are not as good as PC. So I concluded it has to be that, because there was times where I would jump and I had plenty of time to do it, and my character would just stand there. That was by far the most rage-inducing thing, because you have to be perfect with this fight. You can't make stupid mistakes. The ones that, you know, where I'm making the mistake, where I'm pressing the wrong button, if I'm meant to Mikiri counter and I jump instead, I can live with that. It's like, okay, that's on me. I messed up. I hit the wrong button. I did the wrong thing. But when I'm doing the right thing and it just wouldn't happen, I I had to really control myself from throwing my controller. What I would do, and I'm not proud of this, I would squeeze my controller so hard. I can hear it cracking. I could hear it, you know, I could hear that plastic making noise in there. And I would also bang my controller against the desk. And yeah, because I knew, I was like, if I don't if I don't let this out in some way, this controller is being thrown with all of my strength. And so I never threw it, but you know, I kind of, you know, I had to let it out, because those inputs, sometimes they were just not happening. And that was pissing me off the most. Like I said, if I make a mistake, if I press the wrong thing, I'm doing the wrong move, I can live with that. I did the whole game, you know, I had to get good the whole game with that. But yeah, just having that happen to me, man, it was such a up and down thing, really. Just going through these phases, sometimes I'd be on it. It would be perfect. All the inputs were hitting. I was doing really well. And then out of nowhere, the jump just wouldn't happen, or the dodge wouldn't happen. So I really felt like these odds were kind of against me. And not only that, but on top of it, From Software was being From Software. Okay, so every time you die, there's a loading screen, right? That's through the whole game. That's normal. But with this boss fight, the loading screen was longer than usual, much longer, especially when you're trying to build momentum, you're fighting a boss, you're impatient at times, you really want to just get in there. And then From Software was like, nope, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have you sit through this long loading screen. We're going to take you back to the Bloodborne days a bit, give you a flashback. Then we're going to have a cutscene every time, and you're going to have to skip it every single time. Is that cool? Is that cool or what? From Software was so close to getting written off during this boss fight. I was like, screw From Software, screw this game. You know, it just got to the point I was just frustrated. And when you're sitting through cutscenes, or you're skipping, you're having to skip through them, you're sitting through the loading screens, your momentum could get thrown off. There's even a phase where, you know, when Isshin first comes to be, he just walks towards you for sometimes a long time. It could feel like almost a minute. And then there's other times he'll attack right away. It's like, man, this guy, From Software, however you program this guy, you think you're slick. You're doing some mind games right now. You're doing something to us with this boss. I see you. So yeah, it was a crazy up and down experience overall. I mean, what a challenge. I would say if you are thinking about playing Sekiro, if you want to, you know, destroy your mind a little bit and go through these emotional roller coasters, this boss is pretty worth it, you know. going through what I went through with this game, and I'll talk more about it with the review once I, get to that. But the boss was rewarding to beat. I think this was definitely a highlight of the game, as much torture it was. Of course, learning and being rewarded with a win is always great. It was a huge challenge for me, and I will never downplay this boss ever. Now I could probably go in and think it's easy, but getting to that point, wow. And I really do feel like playing against this boss and beating this boss has definitely made me better at the game. It's probably made me a better gamer overall. And that's something cool to say. So yeah, you guys, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to say about the boss. A review should be happening. I don't want to rush it. But yeah, I got a lot to say about this game. Thanks for watching, you guys. Let me know what you think about this last boss. That's it. I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Until then, take care, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.